Please note this meeting is being recorded by the Town Council. Please note the recording device is sensitive and the recording cannot be edited. So do not say anything you do not want recorded. If necessary, I will direct all recording in the room to be stopped, but generally I want to avoid doing that. So we will normally record everything except any item taken in closed session. Members of the public may also make their own recordings, but must follow our rules for doing so, including stopping recording when requested. Thank you very much. Item 1, apologies for absence. I've had apologies from Lisa Carr, Anne Samuels and Ernie Goody. Have we had any others?
We've had apologies from Councillor Gareth Stroud and Julie Stroud. And also Councillor Julian Flood gives his apologies as well from the County Council.
Yeah. Item 2, declaration of interest and request dispensations. Have there been any requests for dispensations? Any declaration of interest? No, thank you. Item 3, confirm the minutes of the full council meeting held on the 16th of December. Council should have received copies in their papers. Accuracy first. Page 1, numbered on your documents 172. Page 2, 173. Page 3, 174. Page 4, 175. You wish I take those to record in the meeting, Simon's correct? Those in favour? Thank you. Urgent matters arising. Anything on page 1, 172? On page 2, number 173, item C, 42113, the Haverhill clock.
Yes, the latest update is that the design of the clock face itself has been done by the school, and that's been costed up and will be produced. The engineers have now started on the tower itself, having completed the angels, and I'm arranging a site visit for the people who are making the clock mechanism, batteries and all the rest of it, to meet up on site with the engineer to discuss and point and be useful to each other on how the clock is actually going to be attached to the tower, so that when the clock's made and it's offered up, it actually fits. Some of you may have noticed the gasworks that were going on in Jubilee Walk, and it's quite a good job they did. We dug a trial pit there to make sure, because that was where the grass was, to make sure that there were no major services or anything. The trial pit missed the gas mains that run straight under the bin where it's supposed to go by a matter of inches. If they dug slightly further over, they discovered we can't put the clock tower where we're planning on putting it. I suggest we actually put it where the trial pit itself was dug in the grass. That's not highways for a start, and it's also, we already know there's nothing there because I dug a big hole and found out. So many thanks to the National Grid for saving us some embarrassment when we dug up the pavement to find their gas main. But yes, we will shift it just a foot over from where it was going to go. Take your hand with that.
Well, that's still visible from the bus station because that was...
It'll be visible from the bus station and at an angle from Jubilee. But with all the talk about the master plan, that area is likely to be developed and the clock will act as a centrepiece of whatever's there. So, unfortunately, that Jubilee Walk is absolutely stuffed silly with services. Yeah. So it certainly can't go any further out into the walk itself. But yes, it will face the bus station on the 3 sides.
Any other questions on the clock? Same page, clerk's response for the planning committee. The planning committee received a draft response and approved it.
Yeah.
And that's presumably been sent off.
Yeah, and it's been acknowledged.
Anything on page 174 when police arose? The only item shown on 175 is the from section 2, part 2 of the meeting. Yeah. to that point, we adjourn the meeting. Oh, sorry, town twinning signs. My apologies.
It's done, the signs are up. I think the photographs have been taken with the Town Twinning Association. And doesn't they look pretty good?
A lot of ones we've done, isn't there? It's not done yet.
I thought they were all done.
Well, they've done the one on Hampstead Road, that was the whole previous one, so they had replaced that, ones, they've done that one. I hadn't noticed any others we've done now.
I thought there was the problem with the one on Matting Road. Sorry, not Matting Road,
The one in 1307. Yes, there's one there. Near the flying shuttle, there's one there.
Oh, good. So they're all done. Can we take them off the agenda now? Thank you. Right, now I can adjourn the report from the police and district county councillors on issues both at the Haverhill and Public Forum.
The police are expected to arrive with their report. I haven't been given a copy of it in advance.
Okay, we'll include the police when they arrive, if they arrive. County Councillor, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, thank you. Unfortunately, we decided today at the SCC cabinet meeting to close the on-track children's centre on the Chiltern estate. The council has said that there will be no loss of services, but I'm extremely worried that if young families have to access these services at different locations across the town, we may lose some of the people off the radar. I've now been informed that all of the high street signs regarding parking regulations are now in place. I've also been told that all the yellow lines in the high street, Merton, Slade and Hamlet Road will be renewed in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Cross fingers. Saga Mill Road. Mill Road resurfacing that was supposed to be completed by the 15th of January has not been carried out. I've emailed Highways a number of times to find out why, but have not yet received any answer back. So I've carried on chasing that. Point 4, I've managed to get an additional vehicle activated signpost installed by East Town Park. They've also refreshed the children playing signs that are there. You know, there's some triangular signs warning children playing. They've refreshed and relit those. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
Yeah.
We haven't got Councillor Brown with us. We've got
Chair, can I just comment on Councillor Brown being with the Children's Centre? I've heard today, I don't know if you've heard, that there's a consultation going out from Suffolk County Council on stopping special needs children going out of county.
I've heard nothing about that.
Right, I just want you to look into that because it's going around on the Facebook side. They're looking, and this will affect autistic children especially, because the only provision in Suffolk for autistic children at the moment is a Churchill school.
Yeah.
And at the present time it's full up. And by what's coming in today, because I'm chair of the governors there, sorry, I'm not chair, I'm part of the governors there, one of the governors. And what I've heard today, that next year it already is near enough full up. So if you can find out about this consultation that's supposed to be going out, about closing schools out of county, and they're supposed to be doing it in county, in ordinary schools. And these children especially that go to Churchill School have been out of education for years. The majority have been out of education, or they've been to special units that are they're not very good for them. And also they go to mainstream school and they're having big problems at mainstream school. So it's going to affect them very badly if they are going to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. John Burke, we've had a letter from you. We haven't had the opportunity to distribute it to councillors.
No, I'm sorry.
Would you like to read it?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I only wrote it about an hour ago. I'm sorry about that. There's 3 sections to this. The first one's more of a statement than anything. As reported in the press last week, it's been suggested that the Chalkstone Community Centre be sold by St Edmundsbury to the River of Life Church for them to hold meetings, etc., with a secondary purpose of providing facilities to the residents of the town. It's been claimed that residents of the Chalkstone estate have been consulted. However, I should point out that none of the businesses, nor apparently any of the residents on Strasbourg Square, have been. In addition, random questioning of residents on the estate would suggest that the first many knew of the proposal was in the press last week. The consultation period actually finished on the 16th of January with a meeting held on the 12th, which all of these people were unaware of. In order to clarify the situation, a list of questions has been compiled and passed across to the portfolio holder in St Edmundsbury, questioning several aspects of the proposal, particularly around parking issues. One of the suggestions made was, if it had to be sold, then it would make an ideal youth hub, considering it would be in the centre of the town once 4,000 houses have been built to the north of it, and require very little in the way of conversion/upgrade in view that it has been continuously occupied. I don't know whether you want to... this is really related to your item 8A that's coming up. I don't know whether you want to...
I rang up the River Drive people because they're going to build this very large church in Chapel End Road. And I asked if their intention was to still build it, to Haverhill, Strasbourg, and he said yes, that they fully intend to still build their church in Chapel End Road. But it's not as worried on the estate because, you know, we don't know what's going to happen to the land. So I'm looking at that situation too.
Okay. Well, that was mentioned on the questions that went on to St Edmundsbury, so I don't know when we're going to get an answer on that.
I certainly will have more detail about the youth hub later in the agenda.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I've
just mentioned the...
I would just forewarn you that when we did the research for the youth hub requirement, it was very clear that needed to be in the centre of town. But at the centre was sort of like located on Market Square, and there was a danger of locating it on any of the estates, with being identified as being for that particular estate rather than for the whole town. So there may be issues that would make the Chalkstone Centre unsuitable. I would also mention that the Chalkstone Centre was offered to the local residents association before it was offered anywhere else.
I'm sure it may have been, but
they felt unable to take it on for obvious reasons. They're a relatively small organisation.
Okay, I'll get on to the next one, which is to do with the handyman, which is item 8B from Bravo. Whilst I generally support the concept of provision of a handyman or handy person, to be politically correct, for the town, at the July 2014 Town Council meeting, this subject was brought up as a suggestion from one Haverhill that the Town Council employ such a person. However, it was minuted that the Council expressed mixed emotions, asked to see a budget, and also that one Haverhill partners be asked to contribute to the costs. Has something happened that has changed their emotions, and has any such action taken place to resolve the budget funding issues? Following on from this, it is assumed that the Haverhill taxpayers will not be asked to contribute twice for the same work to be carried out. Will the Town Council be either arranging for the cost to be recovered from either Suffolk County Council or St Edmundsbury, or St Edmundsbury, or by invoicing out the cost to those two councils on a natural basis? How will the handyman be employed, e.g. on salary or with its associated pension costs or on a freelance basis? Will the Town Council be responsible for the supply, maintenance and running costs of the vehicle and tools? Who will be responsible for managing the workload of the handyman, ensuring that work is done to a satisfactory standard and that they comply with all health and safety procedures? How will work needed to be identified around the town, and what procedures will be put in place to allow members of the public to report problems easily and efficiently, particularly in emergencies? And finally, how many hours per week will the handyman be utilised? There's a lot of questions there, I realise.
There's a range of questions I'm sure will be answered in part.
Exactly, so item 8 Bravo is on that one. And finally, item 8 10 Delta 2, sorry. It is noted that the December 2014 Personnel Committee approved the recruitment of an operations manager. This underestablished person will report to the Arts and Leisure Centre manager and be employed for 25 hours a week. How is this position identified as necessary in view that for the past 25 years this position has not existed? How much does this position cost overall, as the public have been denied access to a detailed budget analysis of staffing costs, allowing for the confidentiality of individual salaries, of course? Why is the job requiring managerial status with its associated potential for perhaps a larger salary group than necessary rather than a supervisor? Considering the number of people working below that level, it is very small. It hardly warrants a managerial position. I'm sorry you never got this beforehand, but...
Councillor Turner.
Yes.
Would the Chair mind if I respond in parts to the last point? I'm sure that the Town Clerk and Maureen might add a little bit to that, but one of the things that we were looking at, without addressing directly any of your answers, is that of legal compliance. And we're looking for somebody with responsibility and experience to take on the issues of compliance with regulations. And that requires somebody in that particular role, and without necessarily any of the existing roles being trained and upskilled to step into that. We're looking for somebody to come in and take ownership and carry that responsibility, but also to be independent and answerable to the other members of the team. Does that answer that part of your question?
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously news, so that's fine. Fine, yeah. Thanks.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you. That's it.
The Town Clerk will answer a couple of the other
Yeah, no, that's
points,
fine.
which are fairly straightforward.
How the position was identified, there is one post which has been vacant for the last year, plus there are some changes in personnel coming up, which means that, for instance, duty managers wise, we will need to recruit a duty manager type responsibility, and this operations manager would have that responsibility. And that's one reason why in terms of the job title, to match it with some of those roles, and also of course it's the responsibility to talk about the compliance in terms of the building. So in terms of the cost overall, the overall cost is £19,052.
Thank you.
I would further advise that the Personnel Committee and I have been pressing for a review of the structure of the staffing at the town centre. We've changed our role substantially, even in the last 5 years, but it's changed. There's been an evolution of change before that, and it's become apparent that the staffing structure we had was fairly old-fashioned. It was designed for different times. There are new challenges, and we need to be more responsive. Not least amongst those are things like the active participation of people in democracy has meant that we're dealing with far more inquiries.
No, that's fine.
And those sort of things have to be updated, and we're updating our structure to ensure that we provide the right service to the community.
That's our sustainability. Should any of those people inadvertently be unavailable who are currently in role?
Okay. Thank you for those answers.
We've got another one, sorry.
No, thank you. No, that's it. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Are there any other items from the public forum? Anybody else wish to say anything, ask anything?
I just sort of generally looking at things as long ago, as you say, very old-fashioned structure, diversity was introduced in many aspects of our society quite a few years ago, and it seems, as you say, things are dragging their feet a little. And I think there could be a lot of money to be saved in using employment in diversity. Often people have more than one aspect of their abilities, and each individual being put into one structure will have the capability of operating in several areas. I think this could save an awful lot of money. It's been practiced for many years in private industry, in big companies. Just as my thoughts are saying, why can't we do more in the diversity, using resources in those circumstances?
I have to say that many of our staff are multi-skilled, and it's not at all unusual to see the town clerk cleaning toilets 1 minute and preparing their budgets the next.
Having washed hands, of course.
Stay out the kitchens.
Thank you for your observations. Please don't seem to arrive, so we'll resume the agenda in terms of standing orders.
I'll just make a comment.
Councillor Burns?
Yes, the message has gone out to all town councils, and I'd like to say on behalf of the town council to send best wishes to Will Wright, who is a local policeman, has worked very closely with the town council. He was, I say recently, within the last 9 to 12 months, was appointed the domestic abuse officer. That as a result of that, there's a hub down at the police station that any of us can use if we want to take someone down there private and give support to in those circumstances. But he has been seconded, no, he hasn't been seconded, he has chosen a secondment, so he's not going to be around for at least 12 months. So I think he's done an awful lot of hard work in the town. Residents respect him. He's been an easy guy to get on with, and I think we should send our best wishes to him from the town council.
Councillor Hammond.
Yeah, can I ask a question on that? Who's going to replace him, or is there anyone going to replace him while he's away for that year?
As he emailed me, Councillor Hammond, I did not ask the question, but I'm sure that I should find out from the refuge in Bury, because he works quite closely with him.
Thank you for that, Councillor Brown. Item 5, 2015-16 budget precept. Councillor should have received the explanatory report and the probably not very readable large sheet. I hope you have a chance to look at it on the computers in larger print. I did, in advance of today's meeting, raise some queries with the town clerk, which he's answered already, so I'll go through those in case they cause concern to other councillors. The first one was on budget head 1190. I don't know if you'll be able to read that on here. Principally, it's about bank interest. I just asked what's the basis for the estimate of £14,000 bank interest, which we're taking into account. And the response I've had from the town clerk is that that's been carefully worked out, looking at cash balances, the amount we can keep on long-term deposits at various levels, and that's a reasonable estimate for the forthcoming year in the light of existing interest rates. I suspect the issue is it's unlikely that interest rates will fall any further. Indeed, we may be better off than that suggests. The second item I raised was the Eastern Centre, which we now, of course, manage. It doesn't seem to be included in here directly. I'm advised that it is included, but it's included under separate heads because we haven't been operating the centre directly, we've been operating it on behalf of. As we move into taking over the centre and running it ourselves, it will appear as a separate item, but not at this stage. Next one was the grip bins. I was alarmed that the amount has been allowed grip bins, but I'm assured that this includes new expenditure on snow wardens and other issues related to that issue. So I'm confident the figure is still a reasonable figure to go ahead with. And the final one was on the precept calculations, which are the boxes over the. I just asked the town clerk to clarify whether this is based on a level tax base, and I'm advised that the anticipation has been for 25, we already have the tax base for next year, for the year after 25 additional homes as an estimate, and for the year beyond that another 50 additional homes, and those are based on realistic expectations of completions, although of course we can never be sure how many of those homes will fall out of the tax base because the occupants are entitled to benefits. So on that basis, unless there are other questions, we'll be seeking to agree the precept for 2015-16.
Sorry, just as a reminder, the vast majority of houses planned for Haverhill are actually not in the parish of Haverhill at this stage. So if those numbers sound rather low, it's worth bearing in mind the research park is not in Haverhill, and neither of the two other big developments at the moment. After 2017-18, hopefully a boundary review would be completed, and that may change. But just in case people are thinking that seems a ridiculously low number, it's actually based on the historical averages that we've seen the increases.
Councillor Byrne.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you to our town clerk, Colin Paul. We had a meeting at the borough about the precept, and Colin queried the calculations they'd done on occupancy and properties in Haverhill. They had to recalculate because they were several hundred out, which made an awful lot of difference. And I'd like to thank you, Colin, because of it, and Roger, because it wasn't for you being so astute as far as the figures are concerned. We could have had problems, and both myself and Councillor Brown at the time spoke and said how concerned we were about the incompetence and negligence of those officers. And it also made an awful lot of difference to a meeting that was going to happen the next day, because they also recalculated St Edmundsbury's figures as well, and they actually found some more houses, so I don't know quite what happened, but so I'd like to thank both the Mayor and the Clerk for that. It's made a difference to what we've got in front of us this evening.
On the basis of current information, councillors will note that we're not increasing the precept for next year. There is an anticipation if things remain as they are and the tax base doesn't increase, subsequent years will require an increase just to keep level. An indicative figure is about 4% for the year after next, and possibly a further 2% beyond there. However, you're not being asked to sign up to those. Those are just planning issues. You are being asked to sign up to the precepts set for 2015-16. Does anybody else wish to ask any questions on the precepts? Broadly, this is as it was discussed at the finance meeting. We discussed this on several occasions, and this is a viable budget for the year. I'm very station recommending it, the precept. So the proposal is that the precept is set at
786,173.54.
all those in favour of that proposal?
I'll second it.
Do you want to agree the budget? You seconded the budget.
And the budget figures that you've got on the front page.
You seconded.
All those in favour of the budget figures? Thank you. It's unanimous. Thank you. Item 6. Report back from the Mayor's meeting, Mark B. leader of Suffolk County Council. Mark B. came to meet me and our borough councillors, county councillors, sorry, not our borough council, our county council, to discuss how we might work more cooperatively and how the county might support us in our endeavours to improve Haverhill in various aspects. We spent the first part of the meeting speaking about broadband, and although that may not be an issue to residents, it is an issue to businesses. It's a very distinct issue to businesses. And we're advised that 85% of Haverhill currently has super fast broadband. It totally ignores the fact that that 85% doesn't include any of the industrial estates, and as we all know, doesn't even include some of the business accommodation in the centre of town. We have nonetheless got an undertaking from Mark and from the broadband specialist that was with him that superfast broadband will be 100% throughout Haverhill by 2020 and will be in the vast up to 95% up to 95% by Easter 2016. We did take the opportunity to point out it's not just about superfast broadband, there's also the telephone service, and 4G ought to be with us by now. It's not even on the radar, 4G isn't even there, and that of course would be the solution to the lack of superfast broadband. Nonetheless, we've raised the flag, we've pointed out this is what our expectations are, and we can't get it all done in one meeting, but that's a start.
They'll put it in beside the railway line.
There were a number of other issues dealt with at the same meeting, including the areas we are cooperating on at the moment, and they are quite extensive. We are working together with Borough and County on our town centre spring clean. Obviously there are people from those organisations engaged in that. Mapping of the town and who owns what, which is a really important issue. Every time a councillor gets an inquiry about who hasn't cut the grass, they will find out whose grass it is. So that's happening. We're cooperating to some extent on One Haverhill, although we'll come back to that later on. But the things where we thought there needed to be more interest from the county, protection of our heritage assets, something that is an interest that's shared by all, but not much support comes from county at the moment, so we're pressing for that. Highway safety around schools, and you will all be aware of the numbers of meetings we've had here where various people have said what they've been trying to get done around schools, about parking, about safety, about safe crossings. The children's centres issue, which unfortunately fell on deaf ears by the sound of it, we made it very clear what our expectations were. The general issue of school improvement, because it's the county that's responsible for improving our schools, whether they're academies or not, the county is still responsible. And we discussed residential school provision and special school provision, because those are both areas where there is a marked lack and a real opportunity. The county spends millions of pounds sending our children out of county to other places, either for residential school provision or occasionally for special school provision. That money, if it was spent in our town to provide those facilities here, could well save a lot more than it costs. So we pressed firmly on that one. We pressed on child poverty, we pressed on residential care, what the sort of provision that we made at Care UK at their new premises, given that Care UK have been rejected and in other areas. And we spoke about the links with the Cambridge City deal, which promises to help us to get the 1307 improved substantially. We raised the flag, as we always do, about marketing Haverhill and saying that we don't think you do enough marketing for us. You'll be aware of the things that One Haverhill is doing through its master planning project to try and sort out something on the marketing as well. So that was the nub of it. The fact is, apart from the broadband semi-promises, we didn't really get much promised. We have to start somewhere, and that's what we've done. We've started the dialogue, and I hope we'll be able to continue that, and other people will be able to continue it in due course. Any questions?
Can I ask a question on that, Chair?
I'm afraid it's not, we don't take questions from the floor at this stage, I'm afraid.
Right,
if anybody, members of the public, wish to question anything that's said today, please feel free to talk to me afterwards or to write to the town clerk, and we will send a written response.
Okay.
Item 8, we haven't got number 7. What happened to number 7?
Number 7, you walk through the door, that's the
We'll adjourn standing orders again to allow for the police report. Thank you for coming. I'm well aware of the constraints on your time. Please feel free to make the report now. And please take back to the station and to Inspector Ferry the fact that we're all deeply sorry that we're going to lose Will Wright from our team. We're very grateful for the work he's done, and there will be a letter from the Town Council that will go around you. Your report, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much. Yes, Inspector Ferry provided us with a short report for yourselves, so I'll read it out to you all. Total recorded crime this year, so from April 2014 to present, is currently standing at 1,407 incidents against a 3-year average of 1,451, so that's down by 44. Of that, total antisocial behaviour incidents currently standing at 766 against a 3-year average of 1,107, so it's down 341, quite a considerable number. Acquisitive crime, which I'll break down in a second for you, but as a total, 589 this year against a 3-year average of 619, down 30. We have about domestic burglary, 47 against 50, down by 3. We have robbery, 7 against a 3-year average of 8, down by 1. Vehicle crime, 106 this year against 154, down by 48. And criminal damage and arson, 284 against 350, down by 66. There is a couple that are on the up. They are shoplifting offences, 164 this year against a 3-year average of 115, so that's up by 49. Drug offences, 89 this year against 59, again up by 30. And the final one, violence against the person, 321 currently standing at 283, so up by 38. As a total recorded crime detection rate for Haverhill Town Centre, it's currently sitting at 37%, which is 520 incidents, which Inspector Ferry has asked me to address you all. He feels it's a very good detection rate, and overall he's very happy with the crime level and the detection rate in the town as a whole. So that's the broken down report for you guys. Is there anything the Town Council wish to address for our attention at all?
Councillor Byrne?
Yeah, is there do the police think there's any relation to the increase in shoplifting and the drug issue? Is one related to the other, or do you think they're just one due to poverty or whatever?
Potentially. Obviously, we haven't got any facts and figures that absolutely hardcore guarantee that they go hand in hand with each other. However, we do know from a personal opinion, I say they possibly do. But again, there's nothing to prove that. But then fences do go hand in hand, and we do tend to see a pattern, yes.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you very much for your time. Please feel free to go or to stay if you're interested in business.
Yeah, we'll get on with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Back to agenda item 8, 1 Haverhill. Town Clerk's going to report first on the recent meeting.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully councillors have my report, but we met with Lisa Chambers, that was myself, Karen Chappell, Nick Keeble, Councillor Brown and Claire Harvey. Judith Mobbs, who's Assistant Director for Future Skills, came along with Councillor Chambers to discuss the Youth Hub, and in particular the Old Magistrates Court. They started by saying that the Town Council should be moving away from the concept of building-based services. As we're about to ask them whether they give us a building, we probably knew what the answer was going to be after that. And no, they're not going to give us the Old Magistrates Court. If we want to buy it, then we can buy it. So long as they've decided they definitely don't need it themselves. They actually have some processes they have to go through. I'm not entirely sure why those have only just come to light, but they have some processes they have to go through in terms of place court, to what they're going to do with that, whether they're going to use it for education purposes, whether they are going to put it on the open market, etc. And until they know the answer to that, they can't give us a market value, because clearly the different uses have a very different impact on the price. So, where we stand with that is that although the lease would say 20 years, effectively it's a lease of 5 years, because we know that it's their intention to terminate the lease after 5 years if we have not bought the building by then. Once we know the price, we'll know where we stand, and we can look at that. As things currently stand, to go ahead without a price simply isn't possible. If we sign a lease on that building without knowing what we're letting ourselves in for, effectively, I think you'd be acting not in the best interest, not in the best public interest, signing up to an unknown liability. We might know the answer to that by April time, but certainly not beforehand. As you know in the report, I've suggested that in any case you have to wait to know the answer to the Old Magistrates Court. There are alternatives, and I've highlighted a number of alternatives there, ranging from the do nothing alternative. I'm not advocating that, but this clearly has to be one. Finding an alternative site. Suggestions include Bevan House itself. It's not a very large site, but it is a possibility. Another possibility, perhaps, if we want to be near the recreation ground, is to look at redeveloping the toilet block there. Obviously, retain toilets, of course, but there's potential to do more with that space, none at the moment. And also, of course, the Corn Exchange, another building that's been flagged up. All of those have issues, which I've highlighted there, in terms of what the potential risks might be for any of those ideas. Another possibility is making youth provision central focus for the proposed extensions to the Arts Centre. I know it's a few years ago that those ideas were proposed, but they are still a good idea as far as the Arts Centre itself is concerned. That's about extending out the bar area to create a new reception at the back, new toilets on the same level as the auditorium. Underneath that would be created in any case quite a large meeting space, and there's also a need to look at the stage entrance for the Arts Centre, which again will create a much larger room where the media hub currently is. So there are several options there that if we were to think about actually doing the youth provision actually on site, we would have the facilities here of that size. I don't know that we're necessarily intending that to be a 7-day-a-week service for young people. I don't suppose we were, but clearly there are some events which monopolise an arts centre, and you'd have to just make sure that the youth provision fitted in with everything else. So that's a possibility. And clearly there's economies of scale to be had for the town council. And the other possibility is to actually take the county council's advice and move away from the concept of a building, of a youth hub, and use existing space in town. And we've talked about things like some of the community centres, not in terms of buying those, but in terms of actually using them and providing, just looking at the revenue side. That's something that you might want to think about for the young people today, whilst we are trying to actually get a longer term solution if we still think a building-based solution is right. Obviously the timescale is moving on. The young people who perhaps responded to the initial questionnaires won't be young people by the time we finish this project, so it's whether we could be providing something to them already. So really it's for councillors to consider, given you can't determine the way ahead in the old magistrates court, but perhaps we should have a plan B, and which alternative or different alternatives you may have would you like us to start exploring?
Councillor Turner.
Yes, I think that's a very good report. Thank you, Jeff. I personally would be thinking that we should explore at least two of those with duality. There's the short term and the medium term and the long term. What are we doing immediately to address youth provision? This has been dragging on well more than a year now. It's getting a bit late in the day, and we ought to be doing something rather than talking about doing something. And I know that we are doing a lot of paperwork and a lot of moving of discussion, but there's nothing happening for the youth, and that needs to change with some urgency. Councillor McClatchy has been investigating the ownership of the former co-op building with a view to having some alternate uses of that. And I understand that you've uncovered, Betty, that it's owned by the county as well and it is leased. So that's another building, which is town centre central, right beside the bus station, and could possibly lend itself to this purpose in the longer term. And it's another building that's currently standing empty and not used.
Councillor McClatchy.
Yes, and that was in the event of them hoping to run an urgent care centre, but that's not a matter. But I've given some thoughts to this, and I've jotted some of my ideas down. The amount of time and effort spent on this project so far has proved fruitless. And as I said before, I think we should seriously consider fulfilling the long-term promise made to the youth of the area by adopting Bevan House. With its close proximity to the recreation ground, activities could be organised around the two facilities, and although this would mean spending a lot of town council money on one section of the population, namely the youth, this could be balanced by purchasing the Corn Exchange building or some other such building, making it habitable and to retain ownership, offering the CCG at peppercorn rent to convert it into an urgent care centre and diagnostic clinic. This could then give Haverhill a much needed lift of status on the health map by creating a healthcare triangle with Adam Brooks and West Suffolk Hospital, with a diagnostic clinic covering the residents within that triangle and making referrals to the appropriate hospital, thus sharing out resources and also offering training facilities on site for medical personnel wanting to specialise in diagnostics. A large number of people benefit from this, and we as a town council here in this room this evening have the opportunity to set in motion a project that would lift Haverhill right up to a health status that the town desperately needs and deserves. And, really, I think a lot of people would agree with me on that.
Thank you, Councillor McClatchy. You've clearly done a great deal of work there. Councillor Bell.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Betty for her contribution. I don't particularly support all the rationale around what she's raised, but I want to take the question of Councillor Turner about, there's been a short-term, medium-term, long-term, and we've done nothing for our youth. I think it's grossly unfair to put the blame at the councillors on this town council we should be blaming Suffolk County Council for giving away a purposely built building, Bevan House, to another organisation, Burton Centre. Why they decided that, I have absolutely no idea. When it was built for youth, many of our children spent their youth there. It obviously would have needed money spent on it, but we could have done something immediately. I think this committee's worked extremely hard. I think Suffolk County Council's got a lot to answer for. I am absolutely furious of the position that they've taken. They've given us, we're in a catch-22 situation. If we lease it for 5 years, please don't interrupt me, you've had your say. If we were to lease it for 5 years and we weren't prepared to buy it, that's 5 years of money that we would have wasted. I think we need to tell them to keep it, and we need to look at the other options. My preferred option is this building here. I'm not going to go into any detail. I think Colin's done an excellent report. The Corn Exchange, if only the Corn Exchange was suitable and could be a building that could be saved modestly, then obviously that's something that we should consider. But there's been nobody, there's been no, apart from the individual that was looking for people to go online, show him support and put some funding in, nobody has come up with any finances for the Corn Exchange because it is so costly and it is not going to be sustainable. So I think we've got to be realistic, and I think we need to look at this building in particular. Haven't got a problem with Bevan House, but Bevan House would have to be pulled down and rebuilt because of the, what do they call the walls, the structure of the building. It's a very, very, very old building. It used to belong to the trade union, and it would take a lot of upkeep. So that would have to be completely rebuilt if we needed a purpose-built property. I don't know what our Suffolk County councillors can do, if anything. I'm sure that they have made representation. I know that Councillor Brown's on One Haverhill as well, where these things are decided and discussed, but I am furious. Can't tell you how furious I am. Not for us, but for the young people in this town. We deserve to be able to provide something that's going to give them an opportunity in life, for apprenticeships, for training. It's not going to be a youth hub, a youth club. It's there for their development, training and what careers they want to select for themselves. I think Karen Chappell, is it, the woman? She's done a fantastic job already with a number of apprenticeships, and for that to continue, we need a building. So I'll say no more, and as that thing's on, and I'm not supposed to swear, I will say no more.
Councillor.
I think probably we've been many of the press, but the town clerk to at least have a look at the viability of doing something with this building, look at a really, really rough idea of what sort of costs that might be. So we've got an idea of where we want to go with it. But it does seem the magistrates' court is being completely frustrating, isn't it, in the process?
Can we establish from councillors now, do we wish to abandon the magistrates' court, or do we think we've reached a stage where it's no longer necessary?
Can I make a proposal? Can I propose that, can I propose that, yeah, we abandon the project entirely and tell them nicely?
Abandon the magistrates'
Yes,
court?
please.
So that's the first proposal. First proposal is that we abandon the magistrates' court, pursue the magistrates' court. You second that, Councillor Robbins. Yes. Those in favour of abandoning the magistrates' court? Thank you, that's unanimous. We then need to consider what we want to instruct the clerk to do. We want to instruct the clerk to look at the viability of making provision here at the Arts Centre. Do we also want to instruct the clerk to look at the cost of provision elsewhere?
Yeah, I think my proposal would be, I'm glad we all agree with me, that we need to do something now. And I think I'd divide it out into three lots of different work. One, look at what we can do in the immediate term and how we'd succeed with that, with this building and sort of buildings we've got access to. The second is, what would the intermediate term be? So, as as the clerk was saying, sometimes this building is spoken for, and what would we then do with that provision? And how do we fulfil that? Do we need to rent something? That would be a sort of an intermediate step. And then what would the long-term provision be? What are our aspirations?
We own Bevan House and obviously this building. We don't have to have any involvement with anybody else. We can make our own decisions. If we look at the co-op, that is owned by one of the local authorities, I think it's Suffolk County Council. We don't want anything to do with any authority. Let's invest and use what we've got and make good what we've got for the youth of this town.
I'll support that.
So Councillor, the proposal now is that we instruct the clerk to look into options here at the town centre, at the Arts Centre, and also to look at short-term amelioration measures that we can take.
Maybe a Bevan House.
Are we happy with that?
Yes.
That's a proposal. Can I have a second on that?
Yeah, mate.
What
What about the Cornish exchange? You look at that at all?
Can we come back to, can we do this one and come to Cornish then? Councillor Hanley seconded that.
Yes,
proposal.
yeah.
All those in favour of that proposal? Thank you. And the last consideration is the corn exchange. I think you were talking about health
Yes,
use, weren't you?
I think we have the opportunity to give something to Haverhill that desperately needs. Whoever you ask, whoever you discuss anything with about Haverhill, they say we need a walk-in centre. Or
So I think
such thing.
Are you suggesting, Councillor Berman, that should be part of the youth thing, or
Well, you see how much it would be, just a rough idea, which actually cost the body right, so I think we are costing territory.
right? We need to bear in mind that the preparing estimates for work here is part of our normal routine work.
Yeah.
Preparing estimates for
Money.
another centre
Yeah.
could imply costs, and we need to be clear that we're committing to those costs.
Just be a shame to see that building go away, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, anything I think about it.
I agree with you, but
I
we've got to consider it as
It's a fantastic
councillors.
building in White's Way, it's a nice building, it's a shame.
We've got to consider it in the context
Yeah, I
of
understand.
delivering our
Yes,
business.
yes, yeah.
So is there a, sorry, Councillor.
I also think we should consider everyone in the town and not just the youth, although I'm fully, supportive of that.
So can we instruct, I'm proposing...
Sorry,
Councillor.
I'm confused. Explain what you mean, Councillor McCutcheon, because this is about the youth hub for the youth. So what are you now suggesting then, that we...
Well,
I'm
my
confused.
original concern was how much all this would have cost for the magistrates' court on one section of the community.
Well, that's gone.
Yeah. So my idea is to spend across the community and give everyone a chance to have something for the future, not just the youth.
Previous meetings of this council have already set aside the money that we're talking about. We were talking about the magistrates' court for youth provision. It's not been set aside for any other purpose. If you want to make a proposal to change that set aside, I need to take advice from the clerk on how to do that.
No, I'm not against the youth project at all. It's
So
just that we've
we are
got the
talking-
opportunity to spread that cost against something else as well.
Councillor Turner.
Yeah, so if I dare to try and paraphrase that, when we talked about long-term provision, perhaps this could be a part of considering expansion of that role. But what would we do for youth and the rest of the town, and how would we go about looking at that longer-term provision? And perhaps this would be an aspect of that.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Councillor Roach.
Just while we're raising the corn exchange, do we know A, who owns it, and B, do they actually want to sell it?
Yes,
Because
yes,
there's no
and
point-
yes, and yes. Councillor Robbins.
Yeah, I agree with what everybody's saying, but I agree with what Becky said. Yes, you need a youth hub, and I think the Corn Exchange would be an ideal building, but there's no reason why you couldn't have a drop-in centre. It doesn't have to be, it can be split up. The town needs somewhere to drop in. We had it taken away by Suffolk County Council. It was used all the time. You try and get hold of a doctor now, you can't. Thank God I don't often need one, but I know people who do. And that would be an ideal opportunity. You're only looking at costs, so put it all in together. Like, the guy was said, it's been going on for years and years and years. About time somebody's done something positive. Yes, you've got to look at the distance, but at least get cracking on the finances.
Yeah, the walk-in centre, and I've still got my T-shirt, by the way, when we tested that earlier. I've still got it at home. the problem with that is it's run by the local health authority, which is government based, and that's the problem. It's all run by the government, and it's a local health authority. For us to get involved with anything to do with health, we would be very little involvement. It would be just verbal, because it's the local health authority which would provide the GPs, all the other facilities that go into the building. So that is really it's an ongoing, really, as far as the town council is concerned. We can only ask for things verbally or protest.
Can't we have some protests? Can't we do something positive?
Yeah, we've already done that, haven't we?
I know, I supported you in those days.
I'm afraid, Councillor, we're going around in circles here. What we need now is a proposal on specifically on the Corn Exchange. The proposal is to investigate the Corn Exchange for potential use for health or other facilities to serve the town.
To expand the youth provision to other services beyond just youth, i.e. to serve all of the members of the community for whatever purpose. And let's explore
Is that
that.
enough to go on?
It is. I'm just thinking in terms of so the intention is to consider the Corn Exchange for youth. Which is if you wanted to, the suggestion from Councillor McClatchy earlier was about a CCG using the building with us buying it, renovating.
My understanding was the proposal originally drafted was to explore the use of the Corn Exchange with the potential for it being let or made available to the CCG for their use for health purposes. That could be in conjunction with other uses. So we don't really want to constrain the investigation to either just youth or just health. We want to find a viable, sustainable use for the Corn Exchange.
I think if we can explore that and find out what it will cost us and if we can get it, and then we can decide how we want to use it and what it's going to cost us for whatever use. But let's do the first bit to see if it's viable.
I would like to stress that the idea was to lease it to the CCG, they would run it, so it wouldn't come down to our side for costs.
So
just be supporting them to both facilities.
That's our final proposal then, that we investigate establishing the Corn Exchange for a use that is sustainable and viable.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Robbins. I propose that Councillor Robbins second it. All those in favour? I'm sorry we spent a lot of time on that, but I'm sure it was
I think it's
valuable.
important.
I'm still going to press the town clerk a bit more on the You're ready, please,
Yeah, did you want to?
on 8B, I wanted to say that I've seen figures for the town handyman person, handy bloke, whatever. No bloke's as bad, isn't it? Handy person. And I would suggest...
an extra next equality on.
Sorry. I would suggest that we've looked here at a fairly long-term commitment, particularly the vehicle lease. And I'd like to ask the town clerk to take this back and provide a range of options, perhaps a shorter-term lease, perhaps a less substantial commitment at this stage. Having said that, does anybody want to discuss these?
Originally, it was put out with 14,000, not 16, so that's changed. And I gather that they were considering taking a 3-year contract on that. So there's more to it than this, and it is more long-term than we thought originally.
I think that's why I asked for it to be further back to look at whether we can do something more modest.
I still
to
don't
test
agree
the
with
water as
it.
well. Anybody else? Councillor Hunt.
This educating place. So who's actually going to pay for this?
As the proposal stood, the town council would have been paying for it.
So we're going to pay for it, yeah. We're going to create positions that we never had before. We're going to take out the public funds, yeah.
You want to make a point, Councillor?
Just can't see why we had, why had them up to this day, why now?
That's the point Councillor McClatchy's made, that we were paying for this twice.
Yes.
Paying for it once,
Yeah.
and I think we should be doing. The position in the past of the town council has been that the jobs aren't getting done to the detriment of the community. We just want to get the jobs done. If that means we've got to spend some of the local taxpayers' money getting it done, then so be it. at the end of the day, whether it's done by St Edmundsbury, it's done by the county council, or it's done by us, it's all public money. It makes no difference whether it's our money we're spending or the other people's. It is still public money. Having said that, I think that discussion's for another time when we've got figures that we think are less of a commitment and we could consider more of it.
Yeah, just to add on that, the Borough Council is, we've lost as a town council from the Borough Council £300,000 over the years because the town council used to be subsidised by the Borough Council. We had to pay for that. The Art Centre, the 200,000 was paid for by the Borough Council. We had to pay for that. So, we're talking about hundreds of thousands, 300,000 over the years that we took on from the Borough Council. So we paid for them twice. So at the end of the day, this, I believe, would be a good thing because we get things done. Because if we wait for the Borough or the Suffolk County Council, as you know, we don't get things done. This, we get done. Thank you, Chair.
Just like I was actually jobs with the years, that's what,
Councillor Thatcher.
So why doesn't the Borough Council take on a handyman to get all this job done? Not
Well,
the Town Council?
Can I come back on that, Chair?
Councillor Hammond.
Yeah, it's as you well know, Betty, that all they're doing is cutting things. It's not only the borough, but it's Suffolk County Council as well. I've just communicated earlier on to Councillor Brown, is that they're cutting things, and they're cutting things to the most vulnerable. And if they're cutting things to the most vulnerable, they certainly won't take on a handyman. There's no way that they take on a handyman.
Councillor Turner.
Or handy person, I should say.
Just a thought from the group for this one. We've got a local business community here, which meets on a fairly regular basis. And I'm pretty sure that various members of that business community, particularly the larger members like IFF, already have handymen and janitors and fully equipped. And I wonder whether they would be prepared as a group, the Chamber of Commerce, might consider being able to subcontract that service to the Town Council rather than us taking on an individual, thereby saving us the money of leasing a vehicle, saving the hassle, but also providing an experienced and skilled person to do the service, especially if
we're engaging now in specifics that we don't need to be dealing with.
So,
this is being resubmitted.
Yes.
I would just like to say around, to answer Councillor Clutchley about why the borough wouldn't pay. I had mixed views about this initially, but I'm more convinced than ever, after ringing up probably every day of the week for a resident about jobs that need to be done that the Suffolk County Council and the Borough Council are not doing in good time. They give you a reference number and say we put it on the list. There are some jobs that need to be done immediately. I'm not saying they're urgent, but need to be done urgently. I would hope that this person would deal with those types of jobs. There is no way the local authorities are ever going to pay for a handyman or anything like it. We couldn't even get them to pay for a traffic warden, if you remember. So my view very much is, I think this, if I'm right, I think this is going to be on sort of a short-term contract to start with. Is that right? Yeah? So if it isn't successful, then we terminate it at the end of the fixed-term contract. But I'm afraid, and councillors that do sit on council meetings in the Borough and Suffolk County Council will tell you they are not prepared now to share money with town councils and parish councils. You have to make your own money and get on with it, and that's where we are. So, although I can see where people are coming from, are we paying for it twice? At the end of the day, we might be paying for it twice, but I think our residents deserve us to look at the things that need to be done urgently, and if someone abuses it or it doesn't work after this fixed term period, then we can terminate it. So I think it's worth a try.
The only thing is, the materials on top of all this could really escalate the cost.
Yeah, I think we need to stop discussing detail. We haven't got the detailed figures, we are going to get a revised detailed figures, and we'll discuss it properly at that stage. This can't lead to a proposal today, I think.
I was just going to say, can we just refer it back and then put it on the appropriate committee? And
I think that's what we're planning to do. We certainly need different detail, or more detail. Okay. Right, I'm just going to throw it back to the clerk again as an 8C.
All right, yes. Community Ambassador Scheme. As members are aware, Community Action Suffolk stepped back from running the Community Ambassador Scheme, which was under the One Haverhill banner. It was funded by One Haverhill and they were paid to manage it. Now they don't have Lane Hughes working for them here in Haverhill. They're taking it slightly more towards long arm reach provision for Haverhill, and in any case Community Action Suffolk is concentrating on representing the voluntary sector rather than actually doing things like volunteer recruitment. So currently that would leave the volunteers uninsured. One Haverhill is happy to fund the work on an ongoing basis, but we do need a umbrella body. I've talked to our insurers. They don't regard it as a particularly high-risk activity. In actual fact, I mean, the main job of a community ambassador is when they happen to be walking down the street and they happen to notice something, they do what all citizens ought to do, which is report it to the authorities for being fixed. So clearly there's no insurance liability there. They do some litter picking, and that's where there is an insurance liability, but the annual cost is £75 on the town council insurance. We would then charge that to One Haverhill in any case. But it's whether they need somebody to take on the management, otherwise they have to stop what they're doing because they're uninsured.
Councillor.
Thank you for that report, Colin. I'd like to propose that we take on that insurance responsibility for the 75.
Can I second that?
Proposal is that we take full responsibility for the Community Ambassador project, including the £75 per annum insurance cost. Proposed by Councillor Byrne, seconded by Councillor Hannon. All those in favour? Yeah. Thank you, Town Clerk. Sorry we're spent so much time with it. Item 9, arrangements for the 2015 election annual meetings. Back to Town Clerk again.
Right, well, yes, there's quite a lot comes up with the election in terms of preparations that need to be made. As you know, the notice of elections goes out in March, early starts, etc., and there will be lots of arrangements that have to be made. There's promoting engagement, encouraging people to take part, preparing the briefing packs for nominees. Within all of that, there are arrangements for annual town meetings, mayor-making meetings, etc. And they take place within days of the election itself. There's very strict rules about how quickly these have to take place. And of course, in the meantime, councillors will either be helping other people or themselves get re-elected. So clearly, there doesn't be a great opportunity between now and the election to keep coming back to you with approvals. So the suggestion is if we have delegated authority to the clerk to get on with the arrangements that would be necessary, then that's done and the town council is acting legally in terms of the work it does.
The proposal is to agree full delegation of authority to the clerk for the purposes of making arrangements for the 2015 election as preparations need to be planned ahead. Engagement, preparing briefing packs, new council handbooks, plus planning the annual town meeting and the mayor-making meeting. Proposed by Councillor Hanlon, seconded by Councillor Byrne. All those in favour? Delegation, thank you. Okay. Item 10, adoption of committee reports. The Appeals Committee has not met. Finance Committee minutes of the 13th of January. I move the adoption. Seconded by Councillor Turner. Those in favour? Thank you. Leisure and Community Committees move the adoption of minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of January. Councillor Hammond, seconded. Councillor Brown, all those in favour? Thank you. Personnel committee have not met.
Just need to note that because
Right. The annual budget you've already agreed allows the appointment of the operations and an admin apprentice. The appointment of those two items will start immediately. Personnel committee responsible. Planning committee to move the adoption of minutes for planning committee meetings held on the 16th of December and the 6th of January. Moved by Councillor Turner, seconded by Councillor Hammond. All those in favour? Item 11 to authorise payments. These are schedules and cheques that have already been checked against the original invoices by a councillor and the cheque signed. So I ask you to authorise the schedule as shown at item 11. Do we agree to authorise those as in favour? Yeah.
so we have people who aren't actually check signatures, just so we can have.
Item 12 to receive urgent correspondence. Is there any urgent
I
correspondence?
do have one bit of urgent correspondence. This is from the St Edmundsbury. It is setting out community governance review, and they're asking, this is triggered by us, I should say, looking for your help in supporting people to become more engaged with local communities and make local democratic arrangements better at parish and town council level. You can help by suggesting what issues we look at, what impact you think future development will have on areas, or where parish boundaries should be drawn, for example. Let us set out more detail. The one that particularly applies to us is whether there will be any impact on major developments rising from Vision 2031 on the community governance arrangements for the towns of Haverhill and Bury St Edmunds. At the moment, all we need, it says, is an indication of issues you want the review to consider and a very brief explanation. If you're content, the review looks at the issues outlined, i.e. the governance arrangements for the Haverhill area, which is basically a boundary review. Then you don't need to reply, but if you want to make any points such as the size of the area, and I think the particular reason I brought it was whether we want to accentuate the point that it's not just a matter of drawing a dotted line around the new developments that are called Haverhill but aren't in Haverhill, but whether we want to look at the wider boundary.
Is there a time deadline on that to refer this to the planning committee and arrange to have the letter distributed to all councillors?
30th of March is the...
Can we arrange to have that distributed? Perhaps the council agree, we'll pass that to the planning committee to look at. Planning committee meets more often than most others, so it's often uses slightly longer.
Yeah.
Thank you. Item 13 to exclude the place in public. Thank you for your attendance. I hope you enjoyed the meeting.